Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's really good to see everybody, and thank you so much for those of you who have been supporting me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all of your support and your well wishes and all of your kindness. It really means a lot to me. Let me begin first with a disclosure. Um, all of the following information contained within this presentation should be taken as statements of opinion and not fact. This presentation is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Any and all named individuals, organizations, orders, sects, religious organizations, and law enforcement groups are all presumed to be innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. None of this presentation nor any statement made herein is meant to harm, tarnish, nor defame the reputation of any person or entity mentioned herein. Each and every statement made has been gleaned from many thousands of hours of careful study of the Zodiac ciphers, most recently the Burger Chef cipher, which was released on September 27th of 2019. The following presentation is a summary of some of my findings as to be precisely what it is that is hidden within the Burger Chef cipher itself. The cipher itself does not have a voice, but let me be that chosen one, the messenger, the truth teller. I am simply relaying to you, the listener, what the Burger Chef cipher has told me to be facts. Once again, all individuals, entities, organizations, etc., mentioned herein are to be presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. I am here to bring answers as to what the cipher tells us. What I am about to share with you is a seemingly impossible tale of government corruption committed over many decades by the very elite in this extremely hypocritical, broken, sadistic, and satanic society that we live in. Since at least 1963, the man who raised me, followed by his son, and then his son after him, have all served as state-sponsored agents of chaos. They've been given a free, quote-unquote, hall pass to commit each and every form of mayhem imaginable. They are responsible for everything from unaliving men, women, and children. Actually, countless human beings have been unalived, to bombings of international claim, including airliners such as Lockerbie Pan Am Flight 103. Also, they've committed major arson, and they're responsible for many of the most infamous crimes committed throughout the United States from 1962 to the present day. I will be the first to admit that a lot of what I am about to share with you will seem to be entirely impossible, and my findings to be called quote-unquote delusional, too. The ciphers are designed to make any person who tries to come forward and to explain all of this to be either guilty themselves or, at the very least, to appear to be completely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, bat poop nuts, completely, totally crazy. That's the way it's intended. So with that in mind, I'd like to start to move forward. So what we're going to begin talking about, something I've mentioned before, is a lot of their crimes, because they are satanic, a lot of their crimes are based on nature and the cycles of the moon. And I've mentioned this before in another presentation. But on the ad that was made up for the Burger Chef cipher, it was made up to look like a 1970s, basically an ad for one of the restaurants, which was called Burger Chef. But to the left, right, there's a lot of things that are hidden in this this quote unquote ad. And to the left, directly beneath the two chefs, are a lot of the Zodiac's crimes, which are listed by their dates, and also the moon cycles that occurred just before or after. I think they're usually before the unaliving itself. So you can see those right above the 340 and right below the figures of the chefs that I'm going to show you here. Also, you can note that there's a Zodiac symbol on the watch itself. I believe it's under the 12 in the center of the watch. So all of this links this cipher to the Zodiac killer, who was the man who raised me. His name, I'm named after him. I'm Richard Nolette Jr. and he's Richard Nolette Sr. And he goes by the name Dick. So his name is Dick Nolette. He's 84 years old right now. But this is the ad we're looking at. This is the ad we're looking at, and of course the Burger Chef puzzle itself to the right. But what I wanted to focus on were, I don't know if you guys can see it, but right here is where the moon phases are listed. So right there. So that's going to carry us over into our next. And right here is the Zodiac symbol, by the way. So all of that connects back to the Zodiac killer, and what it tells us is that that this cipher was created by the Zodiac killer. Believe it or not, guys. I know it's hard to imagine that because that happened so long ago. But once again, this list right here goes along with many of his they call it canonical crimes, which means they were committed in the 1960s. And once again, those are the moon phases, the dates of those. So carrying forward, what we have here, this Z shape that I've outlined, that I've set up on the cipher. What this shows is it shows Nancy Guthrie was murdered on the 1st of February of this year. And in the cipher, there's 4 positions, which are positions 2-1, and 2-1 represents Nancy's scheduled date for the hit on Nancy Guthrie. And that throughout the cipher, I'll show you this list, and it might make it easier to see. I've circled the 4 positions. There's 1 in each corner, and all of those are position 2-1, which once again corresponds to the date of February 1st. And the letter Z, if we connect all of these, the letter Z spells out a word, and the word is SENA. So we go this way. We go here to here, then down to here in the lower left corner, then over to the right. And the word that is spelled out is the Greek word for moon. And once again, this was Nancy's murder was committed on something called Imbolc, which is a pagan holiday. It's also called St. Bridget's Day. It was on that day, they planned it because it was also going to be a full moon. And on that day, it was called a full snow moon, but it's also called a hunger moon. And it's called both of those because obviously it's in the middle of the winter, and that would be the time where there'd be the most snow, but also the least amount of food. So it would be considered the hungry time of the year, because crops were out and everybody's still waiting for the springtime to come. Anyhow, going back to what the word that's spelled out, once again, it's called Sena, SENA. And what it is it's Greek, and it's an abbreviated version of the name Selene, which was the goddess of the moon. And as I've shown before, and I continue to show in further presentations, a lot of this cipher goes back to nature and all things from nature, whether it be a place called Rose City, or the word for oak tree, or in this case, we have the moon. So once again, all of that also connects back to this group of men when they sent the ransom note was not real, but the ransom note, one of the ransom notes they did send, said that Nancy was buried with nature. So all of this connects to that theme, is what I'm trying to say. But going back to the name Sina, once again, it's a shortened version of the name Selene, and I'll just read something here. It says, Sina, meaning the moon, is a beautiful version of the Greek name Selene, a diminutive of Selena. It symbolizes the power and pull of nature, eternity, and life itself. Unconditional love, like the gravitational pull, is an ever-evolving yet constant life force. So, let's see. From here, let's see. From here, I'd like to explain a little bit about how the cipher works, just to catch everybody up in case you've missed the other presentations. This cipher, a part of this cipher is what's called a replacement cipher, or a letter substitution cipher. And I'll show you a chart of how that works. Basically, the top row, each row has two numbers associated with it, and those numbers correspond to letters in the alphabet. For instance, up on the top line, on this line here, what we have is the letter A and T have been removed. So all along this top line, we have to try to figure out where do we fit in the letters A and T. And then moving downwards, like on the second line here, that would be letters B and S. So B and S all along here. And it goes that same fashion all the way from top to bottom. So let me show you this list, which really makes it simple and clarifies it if I didn't explain it well enough. So that's how it works. And once again, letters have been removed from top to bottom in each row. A row is from left to right, and letters have been selectively removed in order to, it's called obfuscation. It's one of the techniques or tactics of the cipher, meant to confuse and make it difficult for you to understand, for anyone to understand what the hidden messages are. So once again, it goes like that. A is 1, all the way up to Z is 26. So, all right. Now from here, we are going to move into something different. Let's see. So, I don't know if you guys have ever heard about the parable of the vineyard and the owner of the vineyard, and it's a biblical parable, but it's boils down to let the last be first and the first be last, and it basically boils down to well, a lot of it has to be a message of faith. And it doesn't matter if we acquire faith early in our life or at the very end of our lives. Hopefully, God will grant us mercy and give us grace to to go to a good place. But in the parable, some of the men work all day long, and in the vineyard, by the way, which is ironic because I come from Napa, California, and everything there is basically vineyards. It's a very beautiful place. Unfortunately, with some ugly people living there. Not all of them, don't get me wrong, but these people, my so-called family of origin, happen to be from there. Anyhow, getting back to the point, in the parable, all these the workers are hired at different points of the day, and they're all promised one silver coin. And even the ones that get there in the last hour or so, they're still all promised one silver coin. Apparently, the owner of the vineyard was wealthy, and anyhow, so Jesus says that at the end of the day, everybody was paid equally, and everybody got their their one silver coin. And I guess some of the people were probably not too happy about that because they had toiled in the sun all day long, and then here come these people and they only spent an hour and they got the same amount of pay. But anyhow, there's a point to all of this, and the point is, lately I have located 2 victims in the Burger Chef Cipher, and the one I'm about to present to you is the most recent, and his name is BRYCE, LASPISA, and I'm going to say let the last be first and the first be last, and he's not the last that was unalived by these people, but at the same time, he is the most recent victim that I found here, and just about 10 days ago or so, I guess. So this is a picture of BRYCE. And the story of BRYCE is he was a 19-year-old young man. He was going through some struggles, and life was difficult for everybody. And he had just broken up with his girlfriend and was moving back from Northern California, I guess moving back to his parents, or at least visiting his parents. I don't know the whole story. But he was on a trip headed from Northern California to Southern California. And apparently he was going through a lot of confusion and difficulty on that drive back. And he kept calling his mother, and it took much longer than it should have. But eventually, he apparently crashed his vehicle, his Toyota, near an on-ramp by a place called Castaic, which is by Castaic Lake. So the town of Castaic is, as far as I understand, that's where he crashed his vehicle. From there, according to the Cipher, it would appear as if some very predatorial people pretended like they basically set up a ruse for BRYCE under the auspices of or the false promises of offering him help, and they acted like they were interested in helping the young man, when in reality all they wanted to do was basically abduct him, torture him, sexually assault him, and very likely held him for prisoner for quite a while. It could have been anywhere from days to weeks to months, or possibly even years. One of the ciphers indicates that another boy was held for 8 years and 8 months, believe it or not. And hopefully that did not happen to BRYCE, but according to the Burger Chef Cipher, some horrible things were done to him. And it's just, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry for his family. I've spoken with somebody who represents his family, and I don't know how you break this kind of news to somebody, but that was BRYCE there. He disappeared on the 30th of August of 2013, and his wallet was found in his pickup truck, and all of his belongings were still in his pickup truck. Apparently, according to the description, it sounded like a moderate accident, but he did have some sort of head injury. And in any case, if I'm not mistaken, he climbed out of one of the windows, but from that point on, there was no sign of him all the way back to the end of August of 2013. And in the cipher, one of the things that connects him and another victim that we'll get to is the word wallet on line 3 down. So let's see. So as I'm talking to you today, I feel like I'm with good friends. Unfortunately, they're the victims of the Burger Chef Cipher, but they include, of course, Nancy Guthrie, and Bryce is here, and also a man named Earl, who we'll get to in a little bit. But there's many other victims outlined in the Burger Chef Cipher, and I'll get to some of those later as well. So by the replacement, if you go back and remember what I just told you about the letter replacement, beginning at the first line, what we have here when we replace this with a T, letters T and A are replaced right at the very beginning here. And what we come up with right away is the words, it says, we tweak, we kill, we ate, just in this little short area here, just from here to here. So once again, it says, we tweak, we kill, we ate. So right there, it spells it out for you. These satanic serial killers are also cannibalistic. They do not eat their victims all of the time, but on select occasions, it spells it right out in the Burger Chef Cipher. That is one thing that they're into and one thing that they do. So this was Bryce's middle name was David, and he was born on April 30th, 1994, and he disappeared on August 30th of 2013, once again in a place called Castaic, which is near the big lake, which is called Lake Castaic or Castaic Lake. So on line 3 down is where we locate Bryce's name, by right here, and that's his first name and also his middle, or his, if we insert a R here, a C here, once again this whole line, the letters that are used to replace missing letters are letters C and R. So an R goes here, a C goes here, and on along the line. And once again, it's connected, it's on the same line as the wallet. And once again, 2 murders were committed in 2013. And both of those, unfortunately, were basically in the Temple of Set, which is a derivative of the Church of Satan. The only way in and out of this particular sect is through blood sacrifice, as in unaliving somebody. And people are initiated usually at a really early age, if at all possible. Dick was initiated at the age of 12, I believe. His son Mike was initiated at the age of 10, and Mike's son, Michael Jr., was initiated in 2013 at the age of 15. And 2 of those murders are listed here in the Burger Chef cipher. One of those being the abduction, torture, and sexual assault of BRYCE. Once again, the wallet is the thing that joins everything together, because in each story there was a wallet. BRYCE's wallet was left in his pickup truck, and with all of his belongings. In the next crime that we're going to look at, in that crime, the wallet was stolen, and then it was returned. It was sent back to the address where the crime was committed, and basically it was sent with a letter, and the letter was it was signed the Good Samaritan. So it's known as the Good Samaritan letter, but it did not include the wallet, from my understanding, but it included his credit cards and his ID, I guess his driver's license. And we're talking about Earl here. We're not talking about BRYCE. So we'll get to that a little later. I just wanted to give you a little bit of explanation for that. The reason it's located on this line is because it's 3 down and 1 in, and that represents the year, which is 2013 once again. For the murder of BRYCE, we go all the way to the 8th. The 8th letter represents the month, so the W, which the W throughout this puzzle can basically any W or any letter W or any letter M. Just imagine it can equal either or. So in this case, it represents a W, but also an M, and the way that BRYCE was likely unalived was by hammer, unfortunately. And if we flip this over, we get the word mallet. So this becomes an M, and it goes from wallet to mallet. Before I forget to mention it, this here spells out BRYCE, BRYC. All of the the majority of spellings in this cipher are what's called phonetic spellings, which means they're not spelled correctly, and they're not usually spelled completely either. So there is a little, you have to use your common sense a little bit to go from one to another. But in these 3 letters, what we get here is Bryce Day, and what Bryce Day means is it means Bryce David, and once again his initial will be repeated over on this side right there in just the simple letter D. We'll get to that later, but right here it also spells out different messages, but once again, Bryce Day equals Bryce David. The messages that are spelt out here include, let's see. So they include everything from, once again, if we don't, you can interpret the word in different ways. You can spell it out BRYC Day, which is Bryce Day. But then if you substitute the letters differently, we get B by day, B cry day, and B car day, but also B ride day. And once again, like the ride day in particular can be interpreted in 2 different manners. First of all, they conned Bryce into getting into the car, so they're making fun of that. But also, they are sexual sadists, and so they're making fun of what they did to Bryce, which was torture the young man and sexually assault him for, I don't know exactly how long. It could be anywhere from hours to years. That's the most haunting question of all of this. Let's see. Trying to go through my notes here, guys, and see what I'm. So we're going to let's see. So we're going to move down over this way. The green letters here are at position 8 down, and 3 over is where the S is. And that spells out the first section of Bryce's last name, which of course is LASPISA. So LAS is the first section of LASPISA. And once again, that corresponds with 830, which is the date that Bryce was abducted at Zodiac. Moving over to this side, we finish up with LASPISA. So LAS, we come over here, and right there at the letter P is where we begin the second half of Bryce's last name. And this line is especially meaningful because what we have here, this is the 6th line down, and this is the 6th position in. And what 101 special means here is, unfortunately, it means a satanic sacrifice, but a big part of that is extensive torture, and there's just a lot of torture and sexual assault that's involved in this. And once again, it's one-on-one special is what that stands for right there. But Bryce's name begins with the letter P right here. So once again, the first part of his last name is here. The second part of his last name is right here, P-I, and it comes up to here, which is S-A. I imagine they were making another inside joke about sexual assault. Can't prove that, but I would not be surprised if that was one of the meanings, because a lot of these phrases, each of the characters in this cipher, and all of the phrases have different meanings in different contexts. So you have to really have an open mind in deciphering the very complex puzzle. So once again, P-I-S-A, and this here also, if you've watched other episodes, represents the what's called the hack sack. This corresponds to position 430, which is Bryce's birth date, by the way. The K being at the position 430. But like I'm starting to mention just a second ago, with Nancy Guthrie, this represents the hack sack, and I imagine it also, unfortunately, Bryce was probably dismembered as well, and probably, I believe that there's a high likelihood that his body was disposed in a lake in Napa called Con Dam or Lake Hennessy, probably very close to the dam. I would not bet money on that, but by everything else in this cipher, I would say there's more than a 50-50 chance that that's where they disposed of his body. But moving on here, the K is at the position 430, which once again represents Bryce's birth date, which was April 30th of 1994. The K there in the green, S-A-K. So this is very difficult to explain, the next part, Let me see if I can get, sorry if it takes me a while, guys. I have all these cards here and they're not exceptionally well organized. So the KAS, remember all of this is phonetic spelling, okay? And it's not meant to be easily figured out. It takes forever to figure these things out. The KAS actually stands for Castaic, the first part of Castaic, which is actually CAS is how you spell it. So CAS, but the K there is the beginning of the location of where they abducted Bryce. And once again, it overlaps position 430 in the cipher, which stands for the 30th of April, which was Bryce's birth date. Moving on to how the last part of Castaic is spelled out. It might get a little complicated, guys, but I've got a tiny little diagram here that will hopefully help you. So on the same at the same position, once again in this, on the top line, the first line and the third position over equals the year, because it's line 1, position 3 is the year 2013. Believe it or not, guys. 1, 2, 3. And because it's on the top line, which is line 1, that corresponds to 2013, okay? So the A there is 2013. Well, I don't know if you guys remember, but this is a letter replacement cipher, which means certain letters have been removed on each row. In this case, those are the letters A and T. So obviously what we have to do here on the top position is insert a letter T. So once we do that, we have the first letter of the second consonant of the word Castaic. So imagine the T here, then the A. Well, just imagine this A gone. There's a T here, there's an A here, there's an I here, but where the I is, there's also we replace that with the third letter of the alphabet because it's the third letter down. So there's a C here. There's an invisible C right in this position. So what that spells is the last 3 letters of Castaic. Last 4 letters, sorry. TAIC, right there. So hopefully you guys are seeing how it all links in. And later, hopefully I'll have time, but I'll show you that the initials M and W, my brother's name is Michael William, by the way. He was born on the 24th or 23rd of August of 1974. This is a 2, this is a 3. That M and W are meant to represent him, but he considers him to be the ancient satanic god. Some people call him the Satan himself. Of Aleister Crowley, basically received a prophecy, or was said to receive a prophecy by an disembodied being called Iwas in the early 1900s, the very early 1900s. And anyhow, Iwas is a big part of early satanic church, and it's spelled out here, which is EIWAS, and it's spelled out in the shape of a smoking pipe, because Aleister Crowley, one of his favorite pastimes was smoking pipes, especially a Meerschaum smoking pipe. Anyhow, all of these are connected to Bryce, is what I'm trying to say. And by the way, if you want to see the name Nolette, where it's spelled out, it begins down here to the lower left at the N, which also represents the 1st of February, which is Nancy's murder date. NO here represents, it's on the 19th line down. So that N and O represent the numbers 19, NO, or 19. Then if we come back up to the top here, we get the rest of the year, which begins at the letter L at the 7th position and ends at the second T. The spelling of the last name is Nolette. So right here is we start down here for 19. We move up to the LETTE, or LETT, which is 1974, and then it's completed at the E in the top corner here, which once again is the murder date of Nancy Guthrie, but also the first letter of the word Iwas, which is once again is the central character in the early Church of Satanism, going all the way back to Aleister Crowley. This name is hidden in the shape of a smoking pipe, which would be Aleister Crowley's smoking pipe. The handle goes here, handle goes just right like that, then right like that, then over, then down like this. So it's like a squarish. The bowl on the smoking pipe is squarish, is what I'm trying to say. And what Dick and Mike have always had a competition, and it's basically to see who is more brutal of the two. And in that arena, Mike had some incredibly big shoes to fill, because the man that raised me, Dick, is one of the most violent men, possibly the most violent and dangerous man to have ever existed in the whole United States, in the whole history of the United States. Anyhow, Mike has followed step for step in his father's footsteps, and he's unalived more people than most people would ever be able to imagine, let alone believe. But going back to the pipe and it being the shape being hidden here at the top right corner, this all goes back to something that Dick did in his late 20s, which, when he was first operating as the Zodiac killer in the San Francisco Bay Area, he concealed his real name in his first cipher ever, which was called the Z408. And that was sent to 3 local newspapers, Bay Area newspapers, including the San Francisco Chronicle, the Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald, on the 1st of August of 1969. In that 3-part cipher, in the very central center section, he concealed his real name, which ironically is my name also. It is concealed as R.R. Nolette, and it's in the form of Aleister Crowley's smoking pipe. So all of these themes are something that his son, my brother Michael, has continued the tradition with, and a part of it is he's the successor of Dick, and he has tried to equal or to exceed him in violence and unaliving people, hurting people and unaliving people. And when I say hurting, I mean some very extreme things that I'm just not going to get into right now, but sexual violence and very horrific things that are not even shown in most horror movies. So moving on. So what I've shown you is where Bryce's name begins, which is in the upper left here on the 3rd line down. Once again, meant to represent 2013. 2 crimes were committed in 2013. There's probably a lot more committed, I'm sure, in that year, but 2 having to do with a wallet, and once again 2 in 2013. So that's what ties both of those crimes together, is the word wallet. But also, well, we'll get to it, but there's dates that are also in common. Okay, now moving on from here, we also come down to line, let's see, line 8 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right here, this is also a replacement situation. All of these lines are situations where letters need to be replaced. On line 8 up, the letters are M and H. And what we get here, well, from this side, is we get the words sent to kill a boy, basically is what this all says. It's word jumble, a word scramble, but sent to kill a boy. And this here spells out murder day. It's MIRDAY. But once again, the word day is what connects. Well, the position connects us back to BRYCE because it's at the 8-3 position, which is the letter D is at the 8-3 position from the opposite direction. So counting from the bottom up, we have the from counting from the bottom up, we arrive at the 8th line, which once again begins with the I, but we replace on this line, we insert M and H at different locations. So here we get Murday, which is murder day, and BRYCE, once again, he was abducted on the 30th of August of 2013. The D represents his middle name. Anyhow, it corresponds to the with the third line down on the top. But as we look across here, once again, it says over on this side we insert an M, and we get the abbreviation for Mike, and it says Mike. I like. Well, it says I like to kill, and it says other things too. But basically, it's describing that he was sent to abduct and unalive BRYCE. Also in this cipher, connected to the same areas that BRYCE LASPISA are the words Hannibal and Lecter. And on this line, it's difficult to see all at once, but the word Hannibal is spelled out here, and we are short a letter N on this line. So I think what the intention was to make a little joke, which was Hamnibal with an M, HAMNIBAL. Believe it or not, guys. And the word Lecter is spelled up on this the 5th character in on the 3rd line down, 3, 4, 5. This, once again, line 3 down represents 2013, and including the nickname Hannibal Lecter. What is being said here is that BRYCE LASPISA's body was cannibalized. Let me show you how that is spelled out, by the way, up here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This LE, see, it's 3rd line down. So there's different, let me just put the card here. It might explain it better. Let me see. So beginning right here, we have LE, and all of the replacement letters come in this very spot right here. The first letter T from left to right, this first letter here. So because it's the 3rd line down, we replace it with a C to begin with. So we get LECT, and then because it's the 5th letter from right to left, we also make another replacement, which is the letter E. So we have LE, 3 down is C, 5 over from right to left is E, and then this is also This is also the line where R is replaced. So the final letter is R. And all of that is spelled out right here in this little list. That took me forever to see, by the way. So Lecter, he's quite proud that he not only tortured BRYCE, did horrible things to him, sexually assaulted him, who knows how many times, very likely held him for prisoner for an extended amount of time before unaliving him. But on top of that, they actually cannibalized him, and the words Hannibal on line 8 up, and then Lecter on line 3 down, which once again represents the year 2013. All of that basically almost guaranteed that that's what they did with BRYCE LASPISA's body, is they cannibalized the poor boy. It's very horrible, and it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that things like this happen in the United States. But once again, some of the highest, the most wealthy people, the quote-unquote elite, this is something that they enjoy doing. And my family of origin are connected to many of the people in power. And I'm not talking about the politicians. I'm talking about the people in the shadows that have actually run this country for a long, long time. At least the last 63 years, probably a lot longer than that. But once again, all of this is who we're talking about. This is a real person. This is a young man that was loved by his family, that will never return to his home. He'll never hug his mother again. His family will never hear his voice again. And I'm here to speak for him. I'm doing all of this under the threat of death, believe it or not, guys. And speaking out is not making me any safer. So I hope you recognize the sacrifice I'm making in trying to bring all of this truth out. And I know it's hard to believe. It's hard to imagine, let alone to believe. And especially with a funny looking little puzzle like this. And I don't blame, there's a lot of people that think I'm basically batshit crazy. And at first that bothered me, but at this point I don't, it just goes along with the territory is what I'm trying to say. Because the designers of this puzzle of the Burger Chef Cipher, one of their intentions was to make the person look as if anybody that tries to explain this puzzle will appear either completely nuts or guilty or both. So those are the risks I'm taking too, by the way, guys. I'm really sticking my neck out here in a lot of different ways in trying to bring answers to the families of these victims. And there's many other younger children that are mentioned in something called the Scorpion Cipher. And I'd really like to be able to tell the parents and family members of those child victims what happened to their families. But the first thing I need to do is form a partnership with some trusted law enforcement officers that are in a position of authority. So if any of you are out there that are willing to step forward and take a chance with me, I would really appreciate it, because I'm not sure I can take this anywhere by myself, is what I'm trying to say. And I really need I need somebody to help. I can make sense of all of this, but I'm not the one to enforce the law or to get justice for anybody. And I really need help in that arena. So please reach out to me, is what I'm trying to say. Once again, all of this little chart here goes back to this one letter, the fifth letter, third line down, which once again is 2013. The fifth line over, the fifth position over, which is this T right here. All of those, let's see. So 1, 2, 3, I guess 3. Yeah, three different replacements occur all in one position. And once again, that was like very hard to recognize and to find for me. Let's see. Sorry guys, I'm going through my notes here. Okay, before I forget to mention it too, on the first year that Bryce's family celebrated his birthday without him, which once again was the 30th of April. Well, it would have been the following year, so it would have been 2014. His mother encouraged one of Bryce's favorite things. I guess two of Bryce's favorite things was eating sugary foods like sugar cookies and Gatorade. And so his mother encouraged people to remember Bryce and to celebrate his life and to keep looking for him on that day, on his birthday, by she was quoted in the newspapers mentioning Bryce and sugar cookies and Mountain Dew. Well, on this this line here, I think it's 7 down. We have the word. We have a lot of things that are hidden right here, which this in another instance this abbreviation here spells miles, MYLES, by the way. So it may be an indication to where they put Bryce's remains. But the first thing I wanted to point out about this line is that we replace the letters G and N on this line. It's actually a line that has a lot to do with Nancy Guthrie in another situation, looking at things differently in another situation. But the word that is spelled out here, the two words, are sugar, ano, the word ANO. My nephew is an expert in Spanish and can speak and write Spanish at a high level, and he was heavily involved in the creation of this cipher. This cipher was created by 3 generations of my family of origin, from Dick to Mike Sr., my brother, and to all the way to his son, which is Mike Jr. And once again, Bryce's abduction and everything that was done afterwards was done as an initiation into the satanic cult, which is called the Temple of Set. That was done in the year that my nephew would have turned 15, I believe. I believe he was born in 97. Well, I think he was already 15. So this happened. His birthday's in October, so he was 15 years old, is what I'm trying to say. So right here we get the word. We insert the letter G. We get the word sugar. We insert the letter N here between the A and the O, and we get the Spanish word ano, which is the word for anus. Continuing on, we get the letter Y, which represents the word WHY. So moving on, we get the letter I, and then the letter T stands for take. Here we insert the letters G on each side of the final N right here, and we get GNG. I believe that what that stands for is the word ginger, and as a lot of you guys probably know, one of the nicknames for a redheaded person is a ginger. So what this is saying here is, oh, by the way, right here and here represent MY and MY. That's mentioned throughout the cipher. That represents Mike and Mike. The letter Y in Spanish, I believe it's Spanish. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's Spanish. It represents the word and. So MYM equals Mike and Mike. Mike Jr. and Mike Sr. When you see that throughout the cipher, that's what it usually means. So basically, he's calling himself and saying why he did what he did to Bryce here. And he says he did it because sugar Anyo, sugar anus, why I took ginger, GNG. Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure that I've covered everything here. Let's see. Once again, other than representing Bryce Day, which represents Bryce David here on line 3 down, which once again represents the year 2013, it also represents different things, which is bye day, like goodbye, bye day, cry day, because they're making fun, they're sadists, and they're making fun of hurting him and making him cry. And he was probably begging for them to let him go. I would imagine I would be. That doesn't get anywhere with sadists. They have no empathy and no sensitivity, and they would just be amused by something like that. Also, what is represented on this line is car day. On each of the letters A, because we replace the letters C and R on this line. It's the third line down and the 18th line from bottom to top. So bottom to top, it's 18. From top to bottom, it's the third letter, which is C. So wherever we have an A, here it spells car day. So C-A-R, car day. And once again, over here, car day. And what it's representing over here is Bryce's wallet inside of his car. So the intertwining of car and wallet. Once again, it represents that all of Bryce's belongings, including his wallet, were left behind in his car. So finally, wrapping things up, down further here, once again, 4:30 was Bryce's birth date, and there's a final message down here in the lower left corner, which is where we see KAH. The letter H is at the 430 position, which represents April 30th right here. Okay, and it spells out two words here. From the T backwards, well, okay, Bryce drove a Toyota, and it had to be towed, obviously, because it was wrecked there on the on-ramp trying to get onto the highway, I would imagine. So this spells out Toyota car, but you have to imagine that KAH, my family originally is from back east in Maine, but not too far from Boston. And the way a lot of people say car back there is ka, like, honey, go get the ka. Okay, we're going for a trip to the beach. Go get the ka. Anyhow, that KAH in this situation represents ka. And going back the T and the O from right to left, which is the form of the left-hand path, they do a lot of things contrary to usual society. They're well, it's a long story, but they're anti-society and anti-Christian and anti-everything that's quote-unquote normal. Anyhow, so this represents Ka, this represents To, which is Toyota in one situation, but it's also the fact that the Bryce's car had to be towed after he was abducted there. So that's what that represents. I think at this point, I don't know if I've done a good enough job explaining this all to you guys. I've tried. Once again, LAS here. This represents his abduction date. The S it aligns with position 830, and this is the first part of LASPISA. Once again, unfortunately, horrifically, the name begins here at the letter P, which is part of the one-on-one special at the position 66, which represents, the 666. Anyhow, one-on-one special is a satanic sacrifice, including all forms of torture. Anyhow, PISA are completed up here, and the position 430 is at the K position, which is April 30th, Bryce's birthday. This KAS once again represents Castaic Lake, where Bryce was abducted from, where he had his car accident, and they fooled him into believing they were helping him, when in actuality they were preying upon him and had some horrific plans for Bryce. The word Castaic is completed by inserting the letter T on the top line. Then it's AIC. The letter C is replaced. Basically, I and C are both in this little quadrant right here, line 3 down, which once again represents 2013. So all of this is tied together. And once again, especially the first line represents 2013 because it's line 1, position 3, but it all ties together. Hope you guys are seeing all that. Let's see. By the way, guys, if you're trying to figure out what all this goes back to, it goes back before this day, but on this day, a certain young man who was 21 years old that day, he earned the right to basically a lifetime free pass to basically do any kind of mayhem or hurt anybody or anyone he wanted, as long as it was on the down low, but he would never get prosecuted. And he earned that right by being the person that shot JFK in the head from the grassy knoll. And in this photo, you can see that somebody has swung the car around so fast that he has left the door open, but he's very determined to get into the photo. He wants to be a part of history that day. And, props go out to him. He accomplished what he wanted to do. He assassinated the 35th president of the United States, and he also bought himself and his family a lifetime free pass as far as not being able to prosecute him or his family members for any crime whatsoever, up to and including the torture of small children, and even the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 to Lockerbie, that was blown up over Lockerbie. And by the way, that flight was intended to go back to JFK airport, and the crime was committed in 1988, and it was the 25th and 1 month anniversary of this day, which was November 22nd of 1963, the assassination of JFK. So as entirely free people, basically they've been state-sponsored agents of chaos. A lot of the crimes from one coast to another and everywhere in between have been committed by my family of origin. And if I started naming them, my credibility would just seep through the floor, basically, because they've committed more crimes they committed more crimes in half of their life than anybody would ever believe. And, Dick is 84 years old now, and basically unaliving somebody, I imagine, is like having a Whopper at Jack in the or at Burger King for most people. It's just like a walk in the park for him or something. But this is the man that raised me. This man right here, with the chubby cheeks. His weight, like mine, his weight fluctuates a lot according to stress. But here looks like he's stressing out because he's has some weight on him at the time. He's 21 years old, and he's very proud of what he just did that morning. And I know you guys are not going to believe it. You're going to think I'm batshit crazy, but that's where all this boils down to. The fact that there's a very high likelihood that everybody that committed the crime against Nancy Guthrie and all of the other countless crimes that they've committed, very good chance that they'll never ever be held accountable in any form whatsoever here on planet Earth. So that's a photo of the day, and this is called the Three Tramps photo, by the way. I guess technically you'd say there's a fourth tramp there in the back, the guilty party, but and at this time, I do have to mention, if you want to reach out to Dick, you can reach him here. For the last 10 or 15 years, or maybe more, Dick and myself, I was raised as his namesake and supposedly his eldest son. We are both trained writers, and he's a pretty accomplished writer himself. Anyhow, he's been writing about himself pretty much daily for the last 10 or 15 years at this website. And I'd really appreciate it if all of you guys could reach out to him and try to convince him to turn himself in. That's what I'd really like to see. But chances are slim to none of that happening. But once again, I'll share that again. Hopefully I'll share that again later in this presentation. But this is where he can be reached. And of course, he's not going to admit that is him. But and I'm sure this sounds crazy as crazy as heck. But I was going to say something else. I'm trying to keep this PG as much as I can today. Anyhow, most of the things he writes on there is misdirection and out lies, including that his father was somebody named Grant, and that the Zodiac is related to Grant, and the Zodiac is not related to Grant. The Zodiac goes back to Maine and a family by the last name of Ridley, and they're predominantly situated in right now in a place called Buxton, Maine, but they were in another nearby town, which I always forget the name of it, but they grew up by a place called Scott Hill, and anyhow, so his actual father is a man named by the last name of Ridley, or at least that's what the Scorpion Cipher, which is a different cipher, that's what the Scorpion Cipher says at the bottom, the lower left quadrant of the Scorpion Cipher says that is Dick's father. So, moving on, we're going to return to the word wallet, and once again, the word wallet relates to two victims. And those victims, of course, are BRYCE LASPISA, who was only 19 years old at the time of his abduction. And then the second man, who this relates to is a parachute rigger, and I believe he was a teacher and a track coach. He lived in a city in Washington State called Woodinville, and he was murdered in his home on the 23rd of April of 2013. And I'll show you a picture of him. This is him in his younger days, when he was enjoying something that he loved doing, which was parachuting. And like I said, I believe he had his own business, and he was a high level, very proficient at rigging parachutes. And actually, that came in handy in one situation in November of 1971. But this is, sorry about that. But this is a picture of this is Mr. Earl Cossey, by the way. A lot of people called him Koss, and that was his nickname. But this is him later in his life. But the reason that I'm bringing him up is, once again, his murder and BRYCE's murder are tied together at several locations in the Burger Chef cipher. One of the most obvious being the word wallet on the third line down, which, once again, the third line down represents 2013. And let's see. Koss, or Mr. Cossey, was born on August the 30th of 1938. So he was born on the same date that BRYCE LASPISA was abducted in Castaic, California. So that's, once again, those are Mr. Cossey's dates right here. His birth date, and what they said was the date that he was murdered, which was the 23rd of April of 2013. So they're almost exactly reversed, a few days different, but I'm trying to explain that they show up at similar locations because of these dates, okay? Let's see. So I just spelled it out a little bit here, what I was saying. Each of these murders committed in 2013 are centered about the word wallet. On line 3 down, 2013. The W stands at position 3-8 for Earl's birth year. So once again, we go top to bottom. We count 1, 2, 3 down, then 8 position over. The W here represents Earl's his birth year, and the WA represents the state of Washington. Okay, WA is Washington. Let's see. Explain more of this. So Earl Cossey is mentioned right here, by the way. This is his birth. Once again, his birth. Make sure I'm getting these dates right. 8:30 is his birth day. So right here, KOS, the letters KOS equal his birthday. But also, in a way, they could represent his birth year, because it's 3 down, and see, it's 3 over and 8 down, but it's also the month, because it's 8 down, and so it's August 30th, but it's also 1938. It's both right here, and we get the alignment of KOS. Let's see. So over here, like I said, in different situations, the KAS means different things and is pronounced in different ways. Here in this situation, 423 is represented by the A right here. So 4 down and 2-3. Okay, the KA represent the murder date of Earl Cossey right here. Okay, so once again, 4 down, 2-3. This is pronounced with a light A in this situation. It's Cos, believe it or not, which represents the same as this, but it's spelled differently, KOS. But same thing in this, on this side, it's Earl Cossey's birth date and year, and over here, it's his murder date. So once again, they're spelled differently, but they mean the same thing. Just it's a different context. Let's see. Okay, and one other thing I want to remind everybody of is W's and M's in this cipher. Automatically think of them as basically being able to be rotated. A W represents both an M and a W, and vice versa. A W represents an M. In any situation, it can represent one or the other or both, okay? So here, once again, we have Washington, WA, and then if we flip it and it becomes an M, this word becomes mallet, which is like a hammer. It's a softer hammer. But what they're trying to say here is the person at position 3-8 was killed by a hammer. That's what it boils down to. And that person was in Washington State. I know it takes a little bit of imagination, guys, but please work with me and use your imagination here, because I'm completely 100% certain on all of this. Well, on this particular part of the interpretation, anyhow. So, Earl Cossey was he was murdered in the garage of his own home on the 23rd of April of 2013, and I would imagine he was, with most of their murder victims, they are bound ahead of time, and they're usually, sorry to be so graphic, guys, but they're usually tortured psychologically, physically, psychologically. I don't think that Mr. Cossey, thankfully, I don't believe he was sexually assaulted, but most of their victims do suffer that fate, unfortunately, including BRYCE, LASPISA, and like I said, it's very likely that they held him captive, and I don't know for how long. It could have been hours, or it could have been years. I don't know, because it's been decades since thankfully, since I lived in Napa or anywhere around my family of origin. So, and a lot of you guys are probably wondering, well, why would they go all the way from Napa up to a place called I think it's called Woodinville, Washington? Like, why would they drive? I don't know how far it is. I want to say over like 1,000 miles each way or something. Why would they do such a thing? Like, it doesn't seem to make any sense whatsoever. Well, one thing you guys need to know is, as a part of being the man that raised me, Dick Nolette, was, and maybe still is, a member of at least 2 3-letter organizations, and those organizations ordered the assassination of the 35th president, which was JFK, and the person that raised me was the actual trigger man on the grassy knoll. A part of, in this Scorpions, or in this Burger Chef cipher, I don't know if we'll get to it today or not. I'm going to try, but one of the things that is heavily detailed in here is something called the Dallas Deal. It's the day that Kennedy was assassinated. And as part of that deal, Dick was promised two things. He was promised all the wealth and riches that a person could imagine. He would never have to work again in his whole life, which was a lie. They never fulfilled that part of the promise. And Dick has an indescribable amount of rage built up in him over being lied to over that. But also another part of the deal was basically it was a quid pro quo, and you scratch my back, I scratch your back. But neither one of them, it was like a deal to mutually protect each other, and that includes all the secrets. And see, but what the three-letter organizations probably were not aware of is how creative the Nolette family could be, and how vicious and sadistic they could be. And in the intervening 63 years, like I said, they've done everything from literally bombing two airliners, Lockerbie Flight 103, Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, and I think it's called a year later, I think it was called the Avianca airliner bombing down in South America. And all of that is described here in the cipher, by the way. All of that is described, and finding this little diagram that I'm about to show you took me months, I believe, to find this. But all of the dots that make up this little figure of the plane, they all correspond to important dates, not regarding Avianca. However, this Burger Chef cipher does include both of the bombings of both of the airliners in 1988 and 1989. I believe it was November of 89 and December of 88. And once again, the one in 88, which was Lockerbie, was done on the 20th anniversary of Zodiac's first attack at Lake BRYCE on Lake Herman Road. Not sure if I just I think I said Lake BRYCE. What I meant to say was Lake Herman Road on December 20th of 1968. The Zodiac, he murdered two victims on Lake Herman Road at this little desolate pullout spot. And basically, the bombing of Lockerbie was timed to coincide with the 20th year anniversary of that attack on the teenagers at Lake Herman Road. So a lot of the major attacks that my family of origin and the extended family of origin that live back in the South right now, a lot of their heavily planned attacks are intended to correspond with anniversaries of other crimes. And dates and anniversaries are really important. And as in the case with the Lockerbie, it was timed to coincide with the exact 20th anniversary of the attack at Lake Herman Road, but also the 25th year and 1 month anniversary of the assassination of JFK. So all of this is linked together, and if you go back, I'd really like to try to work with the responsible parties if I could, because they're the principals in this whole matter, you know. But if they ever feel like doing the right thing, that would be great. But once again, this is Dick's website. He writes here many times a day, sometimes dozens of times a day, sometimes less. But you can go and check him out, and I don't know if I would recommend reaching out to him directly, but I guess maybe it would never hurt to show him a little kindness and to encourage him to turn himself in. He is 84 years old, and he's said to be in not the greatest health. Maybe he would like to turn himself in. He'll get free medical care, maybe a a view of the ocean or something like that, especially if they reopen Alcatraz, Anyhow, this is his website. All right, guys. So, and I just want to show once again, we're going to return to Earl Cosey, but this is a diagram that took me between 2 and 3 months to find, according to all the information on the bombing of Lockerbie, Pan Am Flight 103, and according to the Scorpion Cipher and to the Burger Chef Cipher, my relative who lives in the South, he's a computer expert. He was the one who built the bomb. And in the top left corner of the Burger Chef Cipher here, it describes building what do you call it? A blast. Let's see, a blast toy, a slow blast toy, on the second line down to the top left. But anyhow, I had to do a lot of research to find this, and once again, 2 airliners were bombed. The person that built the bomb was my extended relative who lives in the South, and the people that brought the device onto the plane, according to the Scorpion Cipher, were my younger brother and my mother. So, and by the way, my mother just I recently got news that she passed away. So she is very likely either she was one of the most evil women in America, or possibly the most evil woman in America. And I don't say that out of being mean or callous, or I don't hold any anger towards her. I'm just I'm not going to lie anymore. I'm not going to say she was a great person, because great people don't kill 270 people at a whack, And she did a lot of other horrible things, including participating in the murders of men, women, and children. And one thing I can't handle and would not ever agree with would be the murder or hurting any child. I wouldn't agree with hurting anybody, but the thing that really hurts me is thinking about the children, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. Sorry, guys, I'm tired. Let's see. So I apologize to Mr. Cossey's relatives for, I don't want to call that a commercial break, but it's something I had to I felt necessary to describe, and it sort of ties in to the whole subject as far as planes and parachutes and riggers. By the way, the man who raised me, the same man that I'm claiming to be the Zodiac and to be a state-sponsored agent of chaos for the last 63 years, he himself was an expert rigger at Mare Island Naval Shipyard for somewhere around 30 years, and that was one of his masks that he wore. But I believe it was something that he really enjoyed too. Unfortunately, he enjoys torturing people with rope as well, and using his knowledge of knots and rigging to inflict unimaginable pain upon his victims. So there was some good in that, but there's a lot of horrific. There's a horrific side to it, and horrific does not go far enough in describing it. But let's move on. What I left off was I was asking, why would somebody ever murder a 71-year-old man in their own house, as occurred with Mr. Earl Cosey in Woodinville, Washington? Well, you have to understand, some people can let things go, and other people, including sadistic psychopaths, all they need is one little thing to set them off. And apparently, thank God I'm not a psychopath or a sadist, but apparently some of them, like they can be offended one time and forever they can make plans for revenge. And the word that I have for that is called vitriol, and it's just like a putrid amount of hate contained within the deepest parts of all of their being, I guess. But I've never seen or known anyone who can hold a grudge longer than Dick Nolette. And you could have done 1,000 kind things for him, but if you said one true thing that struck a chord with him in a bad way, that could put you in a really bad position, even a position where he wanted to torture you and murder you. But at the same time, you have to understand that they don't need a reason to do any of this. This is what they enjoy. This is what they delight in doing. So, yeah, that's what I wrote there. Why would a school teacher? I think he was a coach too. Yeah, a coach and a school teacher. And yeah, Mr. Cossey seemed like a really nice guy, and his family seems like really good people. And anyhow, I can't say how much I appreciate the kindness from a member of his family that I reached out to, and I was expecting a much different response, and I was amazed with the kindness I received. Is what I'm trying to say. If I can find people's phone number, I'm trying to reach out to many different victims because, as I've shared many times with you guys, I'm included in the Burger Chef Cipher, and when somebody's included in the Burger Chef Cipher, usually it does not bode well for their future. And what I'm trying to say is, I guess keep me in your prayers. It would be a minor miracle if I survive the next year. But anyhow, either way, I need to share the truth, and I need to get the answers out there for all of the victims, or as many of the victims as I can contact and make videos for. That's what I plan to do. So, believe it or not, what I started to say too was the man who raised me, Dick Nolette, was basically given a free pass to commit any kind of mayhem, murder, or just to do the unimaginable. And what would happen is many times they would find a fall guy or a scapegoat. Somebody, a lot of times they had criminal records themselves, but other times they had no criminal record. But what I'm trying to say is I know of at least a half a dozen men who either are still sitting in prison or died behind bars for crimes that were committed by Dick Nolette. And there's a lot of people in high positions, including judges, attorneys, district attorneys, and on and on and on, that and all the way up to the three-letter organizations, believe it or not, guys, that have participated in railroading innocent men into being convicted for the crimes that were actually committed by the man who raised me, Dick Nolette. So let's return back to the story of Earl Cossey, and some of you guys may recognize his name because in November of 1971, once again, Dick likes to, anniversaries and dates are very important to this entire family of satanic serial killers. And November of 1971 was the, let's see, that would have been the 8th year anniversary of the JFK incident. Well, long story short, the man who raised me is also, I know this sounds more and more implausible and unbelievable and out crazy with each thing I add to this. So I'm just recognizing that to have basically come out and admit that if anybody else was telling me this story, I would say, dude, you're batshit crazy. Okay, sorry for the language, but anyhow, if I was not a part of it, I would not, I would never ever buy into this story, is what I'm trying to tell you. So For those of you that are disbelievers, I don't blame you, is what I'm trying to say. And I was not aware of any of this until 4 years ago, and until I started working on deciphering the ciphers, and also following Dick on his daily writings on his website that I've shared with you a couple times now. So, believe it or not, guys, the reason that Mr. Cossie was attacked was he was the man who packed D.B. Cooper's parachute. He actually, he instructed one of his employees to deliver, I believe, 4 parachutes to the plane, and he was not the person that actually delivered them. But long story short, in the intervening years and decades, Mr. Cossie did a lot of interviews and was often asked the question if D.B. Cooper could have survived the fall, and what do you think happened to D.B. Cooper? And I think it's only natural to assume that D.B. Cooper might not have had the most experience of anybody in parachuting, and I think he picked out a chute that opened very quickly, but he also exited the plane at a low altitude, which makes sense in one way of looking at it, because you want something that's gonna open bam quick, because you're running out of altitude really quickly. But long story short, D.B. Cooper exited the plane somewhere near Battleground, Washington, in the rain, and just lowered the in those days you could lower the stairs. There's a word for it, but you could lower the stairs at the back of the plane, and he basically took the $200,000, tied it up really well, wrapped it up really well in part of another parachute, I guess, tied it to him, and jumped out of the plane. And he would probably say, never to be seen again. Those would probably be his words, because those were the words that he used when he disappeared after his murder of San Francisco cab driver Paul Stein. So I would imagine he would use some similar verbiage to describe his escape from hijacking the plane. But what I'm trying to say is, in all of the interviews, or in many of the interviews, I don't know, honestly, I don't know how many of the interviews. There were many interviews in the intervening 40 or 50 years, is what I'm trying to say. And in some of those interviews, Mr. Cossie apparently said that there's no way in hell that D.B. Cooper could have survived that fall, and that he was quote unquote stupid for doing it, I believe is what he said. And like I said, there's very little that you have to do to get on the bad side of the man who raised me, Dick Nolette. And just one word could be enough. And I guess he was basically at his wit ends of hearing Earl Cossie demean him, and the legend, quote unquote legend of D.B. Cooper. Anyhow, the whole thing is ridiculous if you ask me. But apparently, Mr. Cossie was on D.B. Cooper, which is actually the man who raised me, on his kill list for many years. And he's mentioned right here, basically, Cossie is mentioned up here with the green letters where I showed you before, from the K here on the left side down to the 8-3 position right here, which represents both 830 and 1938. Either way, it's the 3-8 position. Once again, down here, this is meant to combine with this. KAS is meant to combine with KAHOT, and together, believe it or not, I believe those are meant to spell out casket, but it's Kaskahot. It's spelled. Each of the things in this puzzle are very hard to decipher and to figure out. And this is something I would not be 100% sure about, but I feel that it's at least 80% certain that he meant casket here, and he meant the two to combine to equal the casket of for Earl Cossey. But going back to the motivation, right on this line, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is line 6. Once again, these are at position 6, 6. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is indicating a satanic sacrifice, but once again, the murder of Earl Cossey was one of the initiation, I think the first initiation murder for my nephew, Michael Jr. Here, Y is equated to somebody with an XY chromosome, which is either a boy or a man. In this case, this is Earl Cossey. It's saying Earl Cossey bragged, see, B-R-A-G-D, bragged, but bragged dead, okay? This means two different things. It means Earl Cossey bragged, and then it carries down to this line. See, it says DB. So he bragged that DB was dead, but what they're saying is that they killed the man who bragged about DB Cooper being dead, okay? And the reason it's on the 6-6 line here, once again, I think I already shared that, is just like where it says one-on-one special up here with for BRYCE LASPISA. It's the equal but opposite. See, everything is, there's a term called as above, so below. Well, it's the equal but opposite position, that being the 6-6 position, which ties into Satanism and a satanic sacrifice. But once again, it spells out a message here. Y bragged and about DB being dead, and they're saying that the person that bragged that is dead. So, and that person is mentioned down here at the 4-2-3 position. So the A and the H are at 2-3 position, and this is the fourth line up. So once again, in the way I'm reading it, most of this puzzle is phonetically spelled. So there's a room for error, or there's a degree of inexactitude, I guess you would say, in this puzzle. So this is my interpretation of it, though, is Cass Kahat, okay? And it seemed like there were other places that I wanted to address, but let's see. Okay, one thing I do want to mention is on these lines. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention one thing. This is saying that Y bragged that DB was dead, but they said here they're responding. They're saying no, die, okay? Nay is no, and that says die, and then right below is the casket. So it all makes sense. The more you look at it, it all connects together. One flows into the other is what I'm trying to say. So, and here on this line, we get, well, MN can stand for either my brother or his son, Mike Nolette. But one of the things I really want to point out, and it's mentioned in other places in the Cipher, but maybe we won't have time to check it all out today. My nephew received his nickname after this. All of these killers have nicknames, by the way, including Officer W from the Napa Sheriff's Department, and there's another officer that works over the hill. He works as a what do you call it? Like a boat. He patrols the waters over in Stockton area. But all of these guys graduated from Napa High School in the early 1990s. As far as my brother's generation, and they're all members of a very tight group, which is called the Satanic Temple of Set, and they're all involved in. To be a member, you have to have unalived somebody. Is what I'm trying to say. Going back to the nicknames, here on this side. Well, my brother earned his first nickname when he was 10 years old. He participated in his first murder, and I don't know if he did it by himself or, well, he wasn't there alone, is what I'm trying to say, but I don't know if he was the one that actually did it or what his participation level was. But I think he was heavily involved in it, even at 10 years old, believe it or not. His first nickname was, and still is, 10. They call him 10, but they also call him Bagger Mike, and they call him Mike the Hammer. So those are three of his nicknames, and there may be more, but once again, Bagger Mike, or 10 was the first nickname, and I don't know the order of the other ones, but Bagger Mike is one that he uses in the world of motorcycles, but it's actually it's a thinly veiled joke. It's like a family. You have to imagine sadists have a different kind of sense of humor, and that's one of the down low secrets of the Nolette family, is calling him Bagger Mike, and outwardly it's because of the motorcycles, but in actuality it's because of what these letters in green represent, which is hack sack. See, if you go from right to left, which is in the form of the left-hand path, that spells hack and that spells sack. And back when I first started this series, I've explained in other videos that hack sack represents Nancy Guthrie's dismembered remains, which was probably what Porch Guy's bag was packed with on the video that you see all over the news. Let me finish up here as far as the nickname, though. Mike Jr.'s initiation murder was the murder of Earl Cossey, and later in the same year, they abducted BRYCE LASPISA. But here is the nickname. The nickname here also represents Mike and Mike once again. You see MYM, that equals Mike and Mike. Mike Sr. and Mike Jr. right here. But spelled from right to left, well, it's sort of a word puzzle, like a word scramble. Excuse me. But what it's supposed to spell is the word Sammy. And the word Sammy goes back to the Good Samaritan letter. After they horrifically beat Mr. Cossey in his own garage, they took his wallet and all its belongings. But later they wrote a really apologetic. I've never read it exactly, but it's said to be very apologetic letter, and sent his the contents, at least, of his wallet back in an envelope addressed to his home address, and one of his relatives actually received that. But the whole thing was, it was actually the letter writing that they do is another form of torture. It's another sadistic. It's another way that they inflict torture and pain, psychological pain, on the families of their victims. And they've done the same thing with the so-called ransom notes in the Nancy Guthrie case. There was never an abduction of Nancy Guthrie. Unfortunately, Miss Guthrie was tortured and SA'd in her home, I believe, from the time she arrived home from dinner, which I believe was around 10 o'clock that evening, all the way until around 2 o'clock in the morning. And 4 hours is it's a horrific amount of time to be with these sadistic monsters. Let me tell you that. Nothing good happened in that 4 hours. I can assure you that. But going back to the word Sammy, it's mentioned and spelled differently throughout the puzzle. Like, once again, I believe right here, S-A-M-I, I believe it's spelled right here. But the most visible is right here, this word scramble. SAMMY down here. But that was the like basically you have to you have to try to understand the sense of humor of a sadist. And in my family of origin, there were a lot of inside jokes that they never made me aware of because I was always the outsider. And one of them related to one of the murders at Lake Herman Road, and I believe that my now deceased mother was actually probably the person that gunned down the female victim on Lake Herman Road. And one of the nicknames that they always had, or one of the inside jokes that they had in my family of origin, was something about Betty Box, and I think that had to do with the girl's name was Betty, and Box was referring to her being in a casket. So they would always laugh, and I never understood it. But like I said, I was always the outsider and the scapegoat in the family, and never, thankfully, was never brought in or made a. They never tried to make me a part of this because I was always the very sensitive, empathic one, and I never would have participated in any of this. For all of the money in the world, you could not get me to hurt anybody, and especially not a child, you know. All right, let's see how much more of this are we gonna do, guys. Sorry if I sound nervous. I haven't done this kind of presentation on my own in a while, and I've been doing most of my presentations for quite a while now on a channel called Patriot Pride. And by the way, I want to thank everybody on Patriot Pride, from the moderators to, well, especially Adam and Mike. Thank you so much. And also everybody who's supported me, all of the viewers on their channel. I don't know. I don't want to get emotional, but there's a lot of people that have been super kind to me and super supportive. And that's one of the things that keeps me going and keeps me exposing the truth. And once again, guys, I'm risking a lot. I'm risking my freedom. I'm risking what people think of me as far as being completely insane. And more than anything, these people have unalived more people, probably more people than the top 10 or 12 fictional monsters that you see on the movies, like Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger and all of that. They've anyhow, I don't know. Let's see. So yeah, I finished talking about that. Sammy is my nephew's moniker, and it goes back to the Good Samaritan letter, and that's an inside joke, just like the thing I just shared with you about Betty Box, a victim from Lake Herman Road. By the way, I was telling one of my new friends recently about how Dick would, whenever we did saltwater fishing, well, most of the time when we did freshwater fishing, it was at Lake BRYCE, and he was always in a trance. I think he was reliving his glory days as far as what he did there with the hooded attack on the 27th of September of 1969. And it's just weird thinking back on it. I was in the boat with a serial killer and never knew a dang thing the whole time. But what I was getting to is back to Lake Herman Road. Whenever we went saltwater fishing, we would usually end up at the what they call the mothball fleet, which was a fleet of decommissioned World War II ships, military ships that were permanently anchored, basically in, I don't know if they call it San Pablo Bay. It's right by the Carquinez Bridge. I think it's called San Pablo Bay. But if you take Lake Herman Road as far as you can down the road, you basically it'll line up perfectly with where all of the old ships used to be anchored. And I just find that really interesting. And by the way, I saw a video recently, or in the last year, I think, the Golden State Killer. It turns out he used to like to fish in the same right in the same bay, right by the in the mothball fleet, just like the Zodiac killer did, which I found to be unusual. Let's see. Yeah, I wrote down this. Um, I borrowed that term because it was mentioned in one of the Nancy Guthrie ransom notes is the word perished. So the cipher says that the motive for to murder Mr. Cossey was because he had said that D.B. Cooper had likely perished during his plunge to freedom. And once again, the word perished was used in Nancy Guthrie thing. And before I forget to mention it, somebody took my own video and did a rehash on it, and was completely certain that I was the person that wrote the notes outside of Nancy Guthrie's home months ago, because my handwriting matches up so much. And well, I do have to say that was a great observation, and it does look very similar to my handwriting. You have to remember that the person that trained me on my writing, on my handwriting, and on my printing was a woman named Ruth Nolette. And Ruth was Dick's mother, and she taught Dick how to do his handwriting, and she taught my brother Mike how to do his handwriting. So it would follow naturally that all of us have similar handwriting. And I just turned 55 years old, and I don't have anything to hide. And if I did, I would not be on here doing YouTube presentations, because I don't especially enjoy being in the spotlight, to tell you the truth. So what I'm saying is that my handwriting is my handwriting. I'm happy with it. I'm not changing it. And I've never unalived anybody in my whole life, and have no desire to. And that goes for my dog too. He's never hurt anybody either. Let's see. So by the way, I don't know if I really tied it in, but the messages on this side, basically the responsible parties have put their identifiers over on this side, okay? And as in the principle of as above, so below, in this situation, it's as to the left, so to the right. So this side is the deed, and this side is the responsible parties. In this case, MYM is Mike and Mike, and further supporting that, the MN is Mike Nolette, okay? Which his first nickname, unfortunately, he was dragged into this at a very early age, the age of 10, and he got the nickname of 10 was his first nickname, which is pretty ominous if you really think about it. So really ominous and sad if you really think about it. Actually, it makes me sad to think of how many lives have been ruined in this whole thing, but not just the lives of all the victims, but the lives of the little boys that were turned into serial unalivers, you know. So I think, unfortunately, we're not going to get to wrap the part. I have to take this to a place where it takes me hours to upload, because I have such a poor connection at home. And no, I don't live in a trailer park, guys. I just live in an older part of the city, and they have not updated it. They have no access to fiber internet, and I get a ridiculously low upload speed. But enough of bemoaning that. All I'm saying is I have to go somewhere and upload this for many hours, and sometimes if it's a 4-hour video, I've been there for over 12 hours just trying to upload it. So I'm going to come to the end of this pretty soon. But what I had planned on describing is, we'll get to it more next time, is on these lines here, especially the third line down. Let's see. Let me do this really quickly. The word lobotomy is hidden in word scrambles in 3 different places in this puzzle. Here is one of them on line 2 down, and below that is the word carde, which applies in this, like we talked about, mostly to BRYCE LASPISA, but it also this tells a story through all of these lines here. I think from this one, basically the top 4 or 5 lines tell the story of JFK and what happened in Dallas and how they had a deal. And the letters L actually equal the letter J for John. The letters J, the letters F, K, and O represent the birth date and death date of John F. Kennedy. And this spells castle. The CASALL is supposed to be a castle. And by the way, I almost forgot. This also says killed at house, by the way, for Mr. Cossey. KAH equals killed at house. Before I forget to mention it, down here at the lower left on 423, the A and the H are at house, okay? So, sorry. I'm tired, guys, and there's a lot to remember, and I'm doing the best I can. And plus, I'm a little nervous. I haven't pulled all my information out in quite a while because I've been doing my presentations on Patriot Pride lately. But A and H, this is 423, the murder date of Earl Cossey, and once again at his house, in the garage of his house. And then over here too, this means the same thing. This is his first part of this is his nickname, but spelled in a different way, which is Koss. But down here, which once again is his birth date, this means castle. It's KASSAL, but it's spelled from right to left, if you can see that. I hope I'm not going too fast, but once again, guys, I'm trying to cover a lot, and I have to upload this, and I don't have the best conditions for doing that. So KASSAL. And also, a lot of this aligns with my brother Mike's birth date, which is 823. Oh, shit. Sorry, guys. He was born on the 23rd of August of 1974. And so here's the alignment for his birth date, too. So he is at 823. So this can be and is for Earl Cossey and BRYCE LASPISA, but it's also for Mike. And in this case, it means different things. It can mean lake, but in this instance, it means castle. Once again, starting up here, KASSAL, castle. What it's referring to is 2 different things. It's referring to the fact that Mr. Cossey was killed in his castle, which is his house. Once again, repeated down here, killed at house. 423 is the murder date. 830 is his birth date. And once again, this also aligns with 38, which is his birth year. So KASSAL. And finally, Mike was promised the house in Napa, which I just received paperwork saying I've been disinherited over. And I won't bemoan that too much, but I will say I tried my best to be a good son to my father and my mother, and a good brother to my brother. Unfortunately, my parents pushed the 2 of us against each other, and especially made him hate me. But it's like oil and water mixing. I'm not going to say I was an angel, but I've always tried to treat people like I wanted to be treated. And it's like oil and water mixing. When you mix good people and evil people, the evil people are going to hate good people just for being good. And it took me decades to figure that simple little answer out, guys, because I tried everything to try to make amends or to have a better relationship with each of them. But that's what it boils down to. Oil and water and evil people cannot stand somebody that has kind energy or an energy that enjoys parts of life, So this here is representing Mike's payoff for all of these murders that he's committed, which is the house in Napa, the castle. So it represents two different things here. It definitely ties into the murder date and the birth date of Mr. Earl Cossey, as well as Bryce LASPISA, but also it is promise of payment from Dick to Mike for all of this evil committed, for murdering these people, for torturing them, and for sexually assaulting many of them. So, over on this side, well, maybe we'll get to it another time, but in another aspect, a lot of these lines apply to me and the plans they have for me, which are, believe it or not, were said to be approved by my own mother. Plans to do the same exact things as they've done to a lot of other people. Those are the plans that they've outlined in here for me. So, and including many different ways and options of ending my life. So, I guess I'm going to finish with this. Oh, by the way, next time we'll get into this. In this cipher, L can represent can and does represent the letters J and L. And like I said repeatedly in this presentation, M represents W and M, and vice versa. W represents M. Either one can represent one or the other. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry, guys, I'm getting tired. I better wrap it up. The final thing I want to point out, I just did a diagram here. The word IWAS is hidden up here in the top right corner. My brother's name is spelled out here, and he is saying that he is IWAS, E-I-W-A-S. Once again, the family name is spelled out, L-E-T-T-E is finished up here. I'll go through that one more time. The word IWAS is hidden in the shape of a Aleister Crowley smoking pipe, even though it doesn't look like much of a pipe. In Dick's version, in the Z408, it's a upside down triangular shape, which I believe represents water. And then the what do you call it? The bowl of the pipe is in an upside down triangle in the Z408, and then the handle of the pipe is just a straight line. But I've shown that in other presentations. This right here is how it's spelled out here in the top right corner, though, and it intersects with the letters for Bryce LASPISA. By the way, the S and the A are the last two letters of LASPISA. So if you can just picture, there's two pipes that are two shapes like this that are interacting. Like this is the LASPISA is the equal but opposite one that they lock together, if that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. So I'm going to go over this one more time. Once again, everything I've said in this presentation is just things that I've gained from this cipher. It's not meant to hurt anybody, to tarnish anybody's reputation. All of this is information that I've gathered from thousands of hours of studying the ciphers, including 3,000 to 4,000 hours on this particular cipher, and 15,000 to 18,000 in total. And I'm human. Some of my observations could be wrong, or they could just be coincidences, like a lot of people say. So to end things, I want to show the coincidences of the letters that align up, that align to the name Nolette, as well as the 2 and the 3 at the very top with the M and the W. Once again, the name Nolette begins down here. This line is line 19, which represents the numbers 19 in the year 1974. So N-O, right here. I'm hoping the camera's still on. To the lower left corner, the N and the O is what begins the name. Moving upwards, we finished the year 74. Remember, 19 was below. The 74 go from the L here, which is at position 7, to the T on the right, which is at position 4. Those are the final letters and penultimate letter of the Nolette name. The Nolette name is completed with this E here at position 2. It's a position 2-1, which is another indicator of Nancy Guthrie's, that was the date of her murder. And it's also the second letter in the word Cena, which represents moon. And once again, Nancy was killed on the full snow moon, or some people call it the hunger moon. And a lot of this puzzle is supposed to represent or mirror something you guys have probably heard of. It's called the Hunger Games. And at the very top, I'll have to spell it out to you and show it to you another time, but it's an invitation on the second line down to play the best sleigh games. Come and play the best sleigh games. Right here is what it says when the letters are replaced. So it all ties together with the Hunger Games, the theme of the Hunger Games. And to tell you the truth, that's what they've done to my life. They've done a lot of things to destroy the quality of my life, but let's not get into that today. I just want to once again repeat that the 2 here is the 2 and the 3 represents the 23rd of August, and the M in the word, or this W, flips, and it represents an M and a W, as do all of the M's and W's in the whole Burger Chef cipher. But what this represents is Mike and his son taking the wallet of Earl Cossey, and with that trophy, they secured their property in Napa, which is worth nearly $1.5 million. And I was, like I said, disinherited. But right here, what the W stands for is Michael William at position 8, which represents August. So this represents wallet, which was taken as a trophy, but it also represents mallet, and a hammer was used to murder Mr. Cossey in Washington State, who once again was born in 1938, which these align with, and was murdered in 2013, which this line also aligns with, especially the outside characters, but the whole line is supposed to serve as 2013, more through the word wallet than anything. So once again, August, that letter there, 8 position, represents wallet and mallet or hammer. Position 8 represents August. M and W over here represent, they're at position 2 and 3. Michael William. William is my brother's middle name. And once again, we went through the whole Nolette name, but let me spell it out for you one more time. NO down here is represents 19 of 1974. Then we move up here. The letter L is at the 7 position, so 1970, and the T is at the 4 position, 1974. NOLETT. Then we finish it at the E position. So we have as above, so below. That's principle is illustrated here between the first letter and the E, and also the alpha and the omega from letter N through letter E, the beginning, first, and the last. And that sort of goes with what I started to talk about with BRYCE. Let the first be last and the last be first. And please don't forget the victims more than anything. Mr. Earl Cossey. Mr. Earl Cossey, who was he essentially saved the life of the man who raised me by providing the parachutes. the way that he was thanked was by having his skull crushed in, probably psychologically tortured, and probably other ways too, before he was murdered. But talk about thanklessness. Okay, these people are completely thankless and completely brutal, and just they possess brutality beyond all measure. Okay, but at least he had. It looks like he was well loved. He had a lot of good years, and had some things that he was good at and really enjoyed doing. And I like seeing this picture of him. It's one of the reasons I included it. But I'm very sorry for his relatives. I'm very sorry. Don't get me wrong, I had no knowledge of this. I've only figured out some of this stuff in the most recent years. I did not grow up knowing that I knew I came from a challenging, not so great family that was prone to a lot of violence, but I never had any idea that it was this bad. But once again, yeah, Mr. Cossey saved his life by getting him those parachutes. And if you find the online obituary for the man who raised me, who I believed had died in 2008, you'll see the kind of love I tried showing that man, and you'll see that I tried being a good son for him. I never knew that I was not his biological son, and I don't know. I tried my best, and what I got for trying my best was I got disinherited, and I got named in this puzzle, and there's a high degree of probability that they're still going to try to hurt me in a severe manner and try to end my life, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, it's hard to talk about that for some reason. You don't say. So this is Dick's website again. Feel like I'm his PR man or something, but please feel free to take a chance, take a shot, go over there, read some of the crazy stuff he writes every day, and for those of you that are brave, please reach out to him and really ask him to turn himself in and at least try to do the right thing. There's always time to repent for your sins if indeed you do have any. If you're sorry for anything you've done, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. All right, guys. Sorry for rambling on and on, but hopefully I've shown you clearly enough that the family of origin that I came from are responsible for your son's disappearance. I'm very, very sorry about what happened to him. He looked like a really good kid, and he had his whole life ahead of him, and he did not deserve this. And anyhow, I'm very, very sorry. And anyhow, thank you for everybody who had the patience to watch this. I didn't know I was going to go for 2.5 hours. I planned on talking about a lot more, but I guess we'll have to save it for another time. But thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys soon. Thank you again for all the people who have been sending me such kind messages and have been in my corner. I appreciate it much more than you guys can ever understand or realize. All right, thank you.